Jake Morrison floated in the dark space near what used to be Kepler Station and felt his heart break all over again. 3 years had passed since the Zephyrian attack, but the twisted metal and broken dreams still looked fresh to him. His engineering suit kept him warm in the cold void, but nothing could warm the anger that burned inside his chest. The station had been humanity's pride and joy. 50,000 people lived and worked there, pushing the boundaries of science and technology. Children played in the recreation areas while their parents discovered new ways to travel between stars. Now it was just debris scattered across 10,000 kilometers of empty space. Lisa Parker's voice crackled through his helmet radio. She was his closest friend and the best structural engineer he knew. "Jake, you need to see this," she said from somewhere deep inside the wreckage. "Section 12 is mostly intact." Jake pushed off from a broken solar panel and drifted toward her signal. Behind him, Carlos Rodriguez was setting charges on a large piece of hull that was too damaged to salvage. Carlos had been demolitions expert for the Earth Defense Force before joining Jake's salvage team. He knew how to make things explode and how to take them apart safely. Amy Johnson floated near the station's old command center, her scanner beeping as she recorded everything. She was young but smart, maybe the best systems analyst Jake had ever worked with. Her job was to find anything useful in the computer systems that might have survived the attack. As Jake moved through the wreckage, memories hit him like physical blows. Dr. Frank Miller had died right here, trying to save the quantum core while everyone else evacuated. Frank had been more than Jake's boss. He had been like a father to him. The old man had taught Jake everything about advanced engineering and had trusted him with the most important projects. Jake remembered the day of the attack clearly. The Zephyrian fleet had dropped out of hyperspace without warning. Their ships were beautiful and deadly, all flowing curves and crystal weapons. The aliens looked like tall humans but with silver skin and eyes like stars. They moved with grace and spoke with voices like music, but they were killers. The battle had lasted 6 hours. Human ships fought bravely, but Zephyrian technology was far beyond anything humanity possessed. Their energy shields turned human weapons into light shows. Their crystal cannons cut through human armor like it was paper. One by one, the defense ships died. Jake had been in the engineering section when the final attack came. The Zephyrian flagship, a massive thing that looked like a flying cathedral, had fired a beam weapon that punched straight through the station's core. The explosion had torn Kepler Station apart from the inside. Frank Miller had stayed behind to try to save the quantum foundry. It was the heart of the station, the device that let them build things at the atomic level. Frank knew that if the Zephyrians got their hands on it, they would learn all of humanity's secrets, so he had triggered the emergency locks and stayed to make sure the core was destroyed. Jake had watched on the security cameras as Frank entered the codes that would overload the foundry. The old man had looked directly at the camera and smiled, then given Jake a thumbs up before the explosion took him. Now Jake floated in the same corridor where he had watched his mentor die. The walls were blackened and twisted, but the corridor was still there. Frank's sacrifice had worked. The quantum foundry was gone, just a hole where it used to be. "Jake, you really need to get over here," Lisa called again. Her voice sounded excited and worried at the same time. Jake found her in what used to be the main laboratory. Most of the equipment was destroyed, but Lisa was floating next to something that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. It was a piece of the quantum foundry core, about the size of a basketball. The metal was twisted and scorched, but the quantum matrix inside was still glowing with a faint blue light. "It's still active," Lisa whispered. "After 3 years in space, it's still working." Jake reached out and touched the surface. The metal was warm even through his gloves. This was impossible. The foundry should have been completely destroyed. But here was a piece of it, damaged but alive. Carlos floated over to them, his dark face serious behind his helmet visor. "If that thing is still working, the Zephyrians might be able to track it," he said. "We should destroy it and get out of here." But Jake was thinking about something else. Frank had died to protect humanity's secrets, but maybe he had given them something better. This piece of the foundry was more than just salvage. It was a seed, a way to rebuild what had been lost. Amy's voice came through the radio, excited and scared. "Guys, I'm picking up something big on the sensors," she said. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace about an hour away. "Zephyrian?" Lisa asked. "No, they're human," Amy replied. "It's Admiral Stone's task force." Jake knew Admiral Patricia Stone by reputation. She was tough and smart, one of the few human commanders who had won battles against the Zephyrians. She was also known for following regulations and asking hard questions. "Pack it up," Jake ordered. "We take everything we've found and we leave now." As they loaded their salvage into the transport ship, Jake kept looking at the piece of quantum core. An idea was forming in his mind, crazy and dangerous, but maybe possible. The Zephyrians had destroyed Kepler Station to show humanity how helpless they were. They had wanted to break human spirit and force surrender. But what if humanity could rebuild the station, not as a research facility but as something else, something the aliens would never expect? Jake thought about Frank Miller's sacrifice and about all the people who had died when the station fell. The Zephyrians thought they had won when they destroyed Kepler Station. They thought humans were too primitive and weak to fight back. Jake looked at the glowing core fragment and felt something he had not felt in 3 years. Hope. Admiral Stone's ships were getting closer, and Jake knew she would want answers about what they were doing here. He would have to be careful about what he told her. The idea growing in his mind was too important and too dangerous to share with anyone yet. As their transport moved away from the wreckage, Jake made a promise to Frank Miller's memory. Kepler Station would rise again, but when it did, it would not be a place of peace and learning. It would be humanity's answer to Zephyrian arrogance, a weapon forged from the ashes of their greatest defeat. The war was far from over. 6 months after the salvage mission, Jake Morrison stood in an abandoned shipyard floating in the shadow of Mars and watched his team work on the impossible. The old facility had been used to build cargo ships before the war started, but now it served a very different purpose. Hidden from prying eyes and official records, it had become the birthplace of humanity's most desperate gamble. Lisa Parker was welding support beams for what would become the new station's framework. Her torch threw sparks that danced in the low gravity as she worked. She had quit her job with Earth Defense Engineering to join Jake's secret project. When he had told her his plan, she had called him crazy for exactly 30 seconds before asking what she could do to help. At the far end of the construction bay, Ryan Clark was testing his latest weapon design. Ryan had been building guns since he was 12 years old and had 3 degrees in applied physics. His specialty was making things that could punch holes in other things, and right now he was trying to figure out how to make human kinetic weapons work with Zephyrian energy systems. Maria Santos floated near the power core assembly, her hands dancing over holographic displays as she programmed shield harmonics. She was small and quiet, but her understanding of defensive systems was legendary. Maria had kept 3 human colonies alive during Zephyrian sieges by redesigning their shield grids in real time. The newest member of their team was Kevin Brooks, and he was either a genius or completely insane. Kevin talked to computers like they were people, and somehow they talked back. He had been kicked out of 2 universities for hacking into their mainframes just to see if he could do it. Now he was trying to crack Zephyrian artificial intelligence systems. Admiral Patricia Stone arrived without warning on a Tuesday morning. Her shuttle docked at the shipyard's main airlock, and she stepped out wearing an expression that could freeze plasma. Jake had been expecting this visit for weeks, but that did not make it any easier. "Chief Morrison," she said, looking around at the construction work that filled the bay. "I think you and I need to have a very serious talk." Jake led her to the observation deck that overlooked the main work area. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see the skeleton of what would become the new station. It was already twice the size of a normal space platform, and they had barely started construction. "This is not what you told me you were doing," Admiral Stone said. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. "You said you were conducting deep salvage operations." "We are salvaging," Jake replied. "We're salvaging humanity's future." The Admiral turned to face him directly. "Explain." Jake had practiced this conversation in his head many times, but it was still hard to find the right words. "The Zephyrians destroyed Kepler Station to send a message," he said. "They wanted to show us that resistance was hopeless. But what if we could send a message back?" He gestured toward the construction below them. "We're not just building a new station. We're building it using their own technology. Every piece of Zephyrian equipment we salvaged, every crystal matrix and power coupling, we're integrating it with human systems." Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. "Show me," she said finally. Jake led her down to the main laboratory where Kevin was working on his latest breakthrough. The young programmer was connected to a hybrid computer system that combined human quantum processors with Zephyrian bio-neural networks. His eyes were closed and his fingers moved over controls that seemed to respond to his thoughts. The aliens don't build their computers, Jake explained. They grow them. Their artificial intelligence systems are part organic, part quantum, part something we don't have names for yet. Kevin figured out how to interface our technology with theirs. On the screen in front of Kevin, alien symbols scrolled past at incredible speed. Sometimes they would pause and Kevin would frown, his hands moving to adjust settings that Jake could barely see. Then the symbols would start moving again. It's like learning a new language, Kevin said without opening his eyes. Except the language changes itself every time you think you understand it. But I'm getting there. Admiral Stone watched the display with the expression of someone seeing magic. This should be impossible, she said. That's what makes us human, Maria Santos said from across the room. She was working on a shield generator that looked like a crystal flower crossed with a fusion reactor. We do impossible things because nobody told us they were impossible. Ryan Clark called them over to his testing area where he had set up a small version of his hybrid weapon system. The device looked wrong somehow, like human engineering and alien artistry had been forced together. But when Ryan activated it, the energy beam that emerged was more powerful than anything either species had created alone. Human kinetic principles, combined with Zephyrian energy manipulation, Ryan explained. Their weapons are beautiful, but they lack punch. Our weapons hit hard but lack precision. Put them together and you get something that can cut through anything. Admiral Stone walked the length of the laboratory, examining each workstation and asking technical questions that most of the team could barely answer. Jake could see her military mind working, calculating possibilities and risks. How long? She asked finally. 2 years for basic construction, Jake replied. Another year for full systems integration and testing. The war might be over by then. The war might be lost by then, Lisa added. She had joined them after finishing her welding work. Every month we lose more ground. Earth's outer colonies are cut off, and the Zephyrians are building up for a major push toward the inner system. Admiral Stone was quiet again, studying the work going on around them. Jake knew she was thinking about regulations and chain of command, and all the reasons why this project should be shut down immediately. But he also knew she was thinking about the last 3 years of defeat and retreat. What do you need? She asked. Jake felt his heart jump. More people, he said quickly. Engineers, technicians, pilots, and materials. Lots of materials. And secrecy, Kevin added from his computer interface. If the Zephyrians find out what we're doing, they'll send everything they have to stop us. Admiral Stone nodded slowly. I can give you people and supplies. But this project doesn't exist in any official records. If it succeeds, you'll be heroes. If it fails, you'll be remembered as the fools who wasted resources while humanity burned. Over the following weeks, new people began arriving at the shipyard. They came in small groups and through unofficial channels, all volunteers who believed in Jake's impossible vision. Susan Wright arrived with 3 squadrons of fighter pilots who had lost their carriers to Zephyrian attacks. Paul Bennett came with intelligence about alien tactical doctrine that he had learned during 6 months as a prisoner of war. The work continued around the clock. The station's frame grew larger and more complex as human and alien technologies merged in ways that should not have been possible. Jake watched his team push themselves beyond normal limits, driven by desperation and hope in equal measure. Late at night, when most of the team was sleeping, Jake would float near the observation windows and look at their creation. It was becoming something beautiful and terrible, a weapon disguised as architecture. The flowing curves of Zephyrian design wrapped around the brutal functionality of human engineering. Lisa often joined him during these quiet moments. Do you think Frank would approve? She asked one night. Jake thought about his old mentor and the sacrifice he had made. Frank believed in protecting humanity, he said. This is how we protect humanity now. The quantum core fragment they had salvaged from Kepler Station sat in a place of honor at the center of the new station's power grid. Jake had insisted on it despite the technical challenges it created. That piece of Frank Miller's last stand would power their revenge. As the second year of construction began, Jake knew they were past the point of no return. Win or lose, humanity would soon have its answer to Zephyrian superiority. The aliens had destroyed Kepler Station to break human spirit, but instead, they had created something much more dangerous. They had created human determination. 2.5 years after the project began, Phoenix Station hung in space like a predator waiting to strike. Jake Morrison stood on the command bridge and felt the weight of 1,200 lives depending on his decisions. The station was ready for its first mission, and he had chosen a target that would either prove their worth or destroy them. All the Zephyrian fleet base at Proxima Centauri was the aliens' forward command post, a massive complex that controlled military operations across 3 star systems. Intelligence reports showed 12 dreadnoughts stationed there along with support vessels and supply ships. It was heavily defended and strategically vital to the Zephyrian war effort. All stations report ready, Lisa Parker announced from her position at the engineering console. She had become Jake's second in command over the years, and her steady voice helped calm his nerves. The hybrid systems they had built were untested in real combat, and there were 1,000 things that could go wrong. Kevin Brooks was connected to the station's navigation core through neural interfaces that still made Jake nervous. The young programmer's consciousness was merged with Velthar, the Zephyrian AI they had befriended, creating a human-alien hybrid intelligence that could think in ways neither species could achieve alone. Hyperspace jump in 60 seconds, Kevin reported. His voice had a strange harmonic quality when he spoke through the alien systems. All stealth fields are active. Phoenix Station used a combination of human stealth technology and captured Zephyrian cloaking devices to remain hidden from sensors. The hybrid system worked better than either technology alone, bending space around the station in ways that made it nearly invisible. Ryan Clark was at the weapons control station, his hands moving over displays that showed the charge status of their hybrid cannons. Each weapon was a fusion of human kinetic principles and Zephyrian energy manipulation, capable of punching through any known shielding. But they had never been tested against multiple targets in real combat. Weapons are charged and ready, Ryan reported. Targeting systems are linked to the navigation core. Maria Santos monitored the defensive systems from her station near the shield generators. The hybrid shields could adapt to incoming attacks in real time, learning from each hit and adjusting their frequency patterns. But she was worried about power distribution under combat conditions. Shield matrix is stable, Maria announced. All backup systems are online. Susan Wright was in the fighter bay with her pilots preparing for launch in case the main battle went badly. Her fighters were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Zephyrians had, but they were also untested and potentially unstable. Fighter squadrons are ready for deployment. Susan's voice came through the communication system. Pilots are briefed and standing by. Jake looked around the bridge at his team and felt a mixture of pride and terror. They had accomplished something that should have been impossible, building a weapon that combined the best technologies of 2 species. But now they had to prove it would work when their lives depended on it. Jump, Jake ordered. The hyperspace transition was smoother than expected, the hybrid navigation systems handling the complex calculations with ease. When Phoenix Station dropped back into normal space near Proxima Centauri, they found themselves exactly where they wanted to be, close enough to attack, far enough to retreat if necessary. 12 Zephyrian dreadnoughts confirmed, Paul Bennett reported from the intelligence station. Standard fleet formation, shields up but weapons powered down. They haven't detected us yet. The enemy ships were beautiful in the way that Zephyrian technology always was, all flowing curves and crystal surfaces that caught the light of Proxima Centauri. But Jake had learned not to be fooled by their elegance. Each dreadnought carried enough firepower to destroy a human colony. Target the flagship, Jake ordered. All weapons full power. Phoenix Station's main guns fired simultaneously, 12 beams of blue-white energy that crossed space at the speed of light. The Zephyrian flagship's shields flared and collapsed under the impact, the hybrid weapons cutting through alien defenses like they were made of paper. The enemy ship exploded in a ball of plasma that lit up the entire star system. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as the hybrid energy beams triggered cascade failures in the alien power systems. In less than 10 seconds, one of the most powerful ships in the Zephyrian fleet was reduced to expanding debris. Direct hit, Ryan reported, his voice showing satisfaction and amazement. Target destroyed. The other Zephyrian ships reacted with trained precision, their formations shifting as they brought weapons to bear on Phoenix Station. But their targeting systems could not get a solid lock on the hybrid stealth field, and their first shots went wide. Enemy weapons are firing, Maria announced as energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward them. Adaptive shields are responding. Phoenix Station's defensive systems analyzed each incoming attack and adjusted their frequency patterns to provide maximum protection. The hybrid shields held against the alien weapons, absorbing and deflecting energy that would have destroyed any normal human vessel. Jake watched the tactical display as the battle developed around them. The Zephyrians were skilled fighters, but they were unprepared for enemies who understood their technology. Phoenix Station could predict their moves and counter their tactics because Velthar knew how Zephyrian systems worked. Second volley, target the heavy cruiser on the left flank, Jake ordered. Phoenix Station's weapons fired again, this time spreading their fire across multiple targets. 3 Zephyrian ships took hits that penetrated their shields and caused significant damage. One cruiser lost its main engine and began drifting out of formation. The enemy commander, Admiral Kethivar, according to Paul's intelligence files, was adapting his tactics quickly. The remaining ships spread out to make themselves harder targets and began coordinating their attacks to overwhelm Phoenix Station's defenses. Incoming missile barrage, Maria warned. 24 plasma torpedoes, multiple vectors. The hybrid shields held against the first wave, but Jake could see the strain on the power systems. Each hit drained energy that took time to regenerate, and the Zephyrians were learning to focus their fire on weak points. Return fire. All weapons, Jake commanded. For the next hour, Phoenix Station fought the most advanced fleet in Zephyrian space and slowly gained the upper hand. The hybrid systems performed beyond expectations, adapting to enemy tactics faster than the aliens could adjust their strategies. One by one, the enemy ships fell to weapons that turned their own technology against them. But the battle was not without cost. A lucky shot from a Zephyrian heavy cruiser penetrated Phoenix Station's shields and tore through the engineering section. Emergency bulkheads sealed the breach, but not before 3 people were killed and a dozen injured. Maria Santos was in the damaged section when the hit came, manually rerouting power to keep the shields online. She was trapped when the bulkhead sealed, but continued working until the emergency teams could reach her. By the time they cut through the wreckage, she was unconscious from oxygen loss and radiation exposure. Maria is in critical condition, Dr. Jennifer Wells reported from the medical bay. She saved the ship, but the radiation exposure is severe. Jake felt the weight of command as he watched his friend fight for her life while the battle continued around them. These were the costs of war that no amount of technology could eliminate. Good people dying to protect others. The tide turned when Kevin and Velthar managed to penetrate the Zephyrian fleet network. Working together, the human-AI partnership inserted viruses into the enemy communication systems that turned their coordination against them. "I have control of their targeting computers," Kevin announced. Their own weapons are locking onto each other. The remaining Zephyrian ships began firing on each other as their compromised systems identified friendly vessels as threats. The confusion lasted only minutes before the enemy crews regained control. But it was long enough for Phoenix Station to destroy 4 more ships. Admiral Kethvar's flagship, a massive dreadnought called Star of Velkara, was the last enemy vessel still fighting. The Zephyrian commander had shut down his ship's network connections to prevent further hacking, and was fighting with manual controls. 1 ship remaining, Paul reported. The flagship is requesting communication. Jake authorized the transmission, and Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on the main screen. The Zephyrian commander was tall and elegant like all his species, but his silver skin was pale with shock, and his star-like eyes showed something Jake had never seen in an alien before. Fear. "Human commander," Kethvar said in accented English. "What manner of ship is this? Your weapons cut through our shields like they do not exist." "This is Phoenix Station," Jake replied. "Built from the wreckage of Kepler Station that your people destroyed." Understanding dawned in the alien's eyes. "You took our technology and made it your own." "We made it better," Jake corrected. Admiral Kethvar was quiet for a moment, looking at something off-screen. "My ship is disabled and my fleet is destroyed. I request terms for surrender." Jake looked around the bridge at his exhausted crew. They had won their first battle, but the cost had been higher than expected. News of Phoenix Station's victory at Proxima Centauri spread through human space like wildfire and reached the Zephyrian Empire like a thunderclap. Jake Morrison stood in the station's communications center, watching reports from across the galaxy as both species tried to understand what had happened. A single human vessel had destroyed an entire Zephyrian fleet, using their own technology against them. Emperor Veltar himself appeared on subspace communications from the Zephyrian homeworld of Velkara, his ancient face showing emotions that few humans had ever seen in their enemies. The Emperor was old even by Zephyrian standards, having ruled the Empire for over 3 centuries. His silver skin had the deep patina of age, and his star-like eyes held the wisdom of countless battles. "You have accomplished something we thought impossible," the Emperor said to Jake. During their first direct communication, "You have taken the gifts of our civilization and turned them into weapons against us." "We took what you left behind when you destroyed Kepler Station," Jake replied. "You wanted to send a message about Zephyrian superiority. We're sending one back about human determination." Admiral Kethavar, now a prisoner aboard Phoenix Station, had proven to be an unexpected source of intelligence about Zephyrian tactics and technology. The alien commander was professional in defeat, answering questions about military deployments while carefully avoiding any information that might endanger civilian populations. "My people are not evil," Kethavar explained to Jake during one of their conversations. "We expand because we must, because our population grows and our worlds become crowded. When we encountered humanity, we saw the same expansionist drive that once motivated us. We feared you would become what we became." "And what did you become?" Jake asked. "Conquerors," the alien admiral replied sadly. "We told ourselves it was for galactic peace and order. But in truth, we became the thing we once fought against." Phoenix Station had become more than a weapon during the months following the Proxima battle. Jake's team had captured enough Zephyrian technology to upgrade their systems beyond anything either species had achieved alone. The hybrid approach was proving superior to pure human or alien engineering. Maria Santos had survived her radiation exposure, but the treatment had changed her in unexpected ways. Her eyes now showed flecks of crystal blue that matched the Zephyrian power systems she worked with. More importantly, she could interface directly with alien technology in ways that even Kevin found impressive. "The station is learning," Maria explained to Jake as they watched repair teams fix battle damage. "The hybrid systems are adapting and improving themselves. We're not just using Zephyrian technology anymore, we're evolving it." Kevin Brooks and Velthar had become something unprecedented, a true merger of human and artificial intelligence. They could think in ways that neither species had imagined possible, solving problems by approaching them from completely different angles simultaneously. "The Empire is mobilizing everything they have," Kevin reported from his connection to captured Zephyrian communication networks. "They're pulling ships from every sector to defend Velkara. Over 50 dreadnoughts plus support vessels." Jake studied the intelligence reports that Paul Bennett had compiled. The Zephyrian response was massive, but it was also desperate. They were committing forces from across the Empire to stop Phoenix Station, leaving other sectors vulnerable to human counterattacks. "They're afraid," Lisa Parker observed. She had become Jake's strategic advisor as well as his chief engineer. For the first time since the war started, they're fighting defensively. The decision to attack Velkara directly was not made lightly. Jake knew that striking at the Zephyrian homeworld would either end the war or escalate it beyond any possibility of negotiation. But Admiral Stone's latest reports from Earth showed that humanity was running out of time. "The outer colonies are gone," Stone reported during a secure communication. "The Zephyrians have cut off supply lines to everything beyond the Jupiter system. If we can't force a decision soon, Earth itself will be under siege within 6 months." Phoenix Station's journey to Velkara took 2 weeks through hyperspace, giving Jake time to prepare his crew for the largest space battle in galactic history. The station's systems had been upgraded with everything they learned from captured Zephyrian technology, making it more powerful than ever. Ryan Clark had increased the weapons output by 30% using hybrid targeting systems that could track dozens of targets simultaneously. Susan Wright's fighter squadrons now included pilots who could interface directly with their ships through neural links copied from Zephyrian flight systems. Dr. Jennifer Wells had developed medical treatments that allowed humans to safely interface with alien technology, opening up possibilities that neither species had considered alone. Her work had saved lives and expanded human capabilities in ways that were changing the definition of what it meant to be human. When Phoenix Station dropped out of hyperspace above Velkara, Jake found himself looking at the most beautiful world he had ever seen. The Zephyrian homeworld was a blue-green jewel covered with crystal cities that caught and reflected sunlight in spectacular displays. But surrounding the planet was the largest fleet ever assembled, over 60 capital ships arranged in defensive formations. Emperor Veltar is broadcasting on all frequencies, Paul reported. He wants to speak with you directly. Jake accepted the communication and the ancient Zephyrian ruler appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Jake could see the crystal spires of the Imperial Palace on Velkara's largest continent. Human Commander, the Emperor said formally, you have traveled far from your small worlds to reach the heart of our empire. What do you hope to accomplish here? What you accomplished at Kepler Station, Jake replied. To send a message that will end this war. And if I refuse to surrender? Jake looked around the bridge at his crew, at the people who had followed him on an impossible journey from salvage operation to galactic war. They had built something unprecedented and proven that human determination could overcome any obstacle. Then, we fight, Jake said simply. The battle for Velkara began with Phoenix Station, facing odds of 60-1 against the finest ships in the Zephyrian Empire. But the hybrid systems that Jake's team had developed gave them advantages that pure numbers could not overcome. Their weapons could penetrate any shield, their defenses could adapt to any attack, and their tactics combined human unpredictability with alien precision. The key moment came when Kevin and Velthar managed to hack into the Zephyrian fleet network and turn their coordination systems against them. Suddenly, 60 ships that had been working together began targeting each other as their compromised computers identified friendly vessels as threats. I have control of their flagship, Kevin announced. The Star of Veltar is targeting its own escorts. The massive flagship, larger than Phoenix Station itself, began firing on the ships around it. The quantum core that powered the Zephyrian dreadnought used the same technology as the original Kepler Station, and Jake realized they could use that against them. Can you overload their power systems? Jake asked. Give me 30 seconds, Kevin replied. The feedback pulse that Kevin and Velthar generated traveled through the Zephyrian fleet network and overloaded every quantum core simultaneously. The explosion that followed lit up the entire Velkara system as dozens of ships destroyed themselves from within. Emperor Veltar's image appeared on the communication screen again. But this time he was standing in a damaged throne room with crystal debris scattered around him. The proud ruler of a galactic empire looked old and tired as he stared at the human who had accomplished the impossible. Your victory is complete, the Emperor said quietly. What are your terms? Jake thought about Frank Miller and all the people who had died when Kepler Station fell. He thought about the colonies that had been lost and the retreat that had seemed endless. But he also thought about Admiral Kethvar and the conversations they had shared about the nature of expansion and conquest. Peace, Jake said. A real peace, not just the absence of war. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of Phoenix Station as it orbited a neutral world where human and Zephyrian diplomats were hammering out the details of a treaty that would reshape the galaxy. The station that had been built as a weapon of revenge was being converted into something else entirely. Lisa Parker joined him at the windows, looking out at the construction work that was transforming Phoenix Station into a joint research facility. Human and Zephyrian engineers worked side by side, sharing knowledge that would benefit both species. Frank would be proud, Lisa said softly. Jake nodded, thinking about his old mentor and the sacrifice that had started everything. Kepler Station had been destroyed to show human weakness, but its destruction had ultimately revealed human strength. Sometimes the greatest victories came from the most devastating defeats. What do you think comes next? Lisa asked. Jake looked out at the galaxy, at the vast expanse of stars that held worlds and civilizations they had not yet imagined. Humanity and the Zephyrian Empire had learned to work together. But there were other species out there, other challenges waiting. Whatever it is, Jake said, we'll face it together. Phoenix Station had risen from the ashes of Kepler Station as a weapon of war. 1 year into the construction, Phoenix Station was taking shape and Jake Morrison barely recognized the thing they were building. The station stretched over 5 kilometers from end to end, its hull a mixture of human titanium steel and alien crystal metal that seemed to shift colors in the light. Where the original Kepler station had been built for research and comfort, Phoenix Station was designed for one purpose only: war. The construction crew had grown to over 800 people, all working in secret shifts that never appeared on official records. Admiral Stone had kept her promise about supplies and personnel, but Jake knew the resources were coming from desperate places. Earth was losing the war, and every piece of metal, every skilled worker sent to Phoenix Station was one less defending the home system. Lisa Parker stood on the command deck that was still under construction, watching work crews install the hybrid control systems. The bridge combined human tactical displays with Zephyrian bio-neural interfaces, creating something that looked like it belonged in a fever dream. But the systems worked better together than either species had achieved alone. "Jake, we have a problem," called out Dr. Jennifer Wells from the medical bay. She had joined the project 6 months earlier when her hospital ship was destroyed by Zephyrian raiders. Jennifer was a trauma surgeon, but she had also become their expert on treating exposure to alien technology. 3 more people in sick bay with crystal poisoning. Jake hurried to the medical section where 3 technicians lay unconscious on biobeds. Their skin had a faint blue tint and their breathing was shallow. Working with Zephyrian technology was dangerous in ways they were still discovering. The alien systems were partially alive, and sometimes they tried to integrate with human biology in ways that human bodies could not handle. "How bad?" Jake asked. "They'll live," Jennifer replied. "But we need to be more careful. The crystal matrix in Section 7 is more active than we thought. It's trying to bond with anyone who touches it." This was the challenge they faced every day. Zephyrian technology was not just advanced. It was fundamentally different from human engineering. Their ships and stations were grown rather than built, using processes that combined quantum mechanics with something that was almost like biological evolution. Integrating it with human systems required constant improvisation and frequent miracles. Kevin Brooks had made the biggest breakthrough 3 months earlier when he successfully interfaced with a Zephyrian navigation computer. The experience had left him unconscious for 2 days, and when he woke up, his eyes had flecks of silver in them that had not been there before. But he could now communicate directly with alien systems in ways that should have been impossible. "The navigation core is trying to learn our star charts," Kevin reported from his station in the computer center. He was connected to the hybrid system through neural interfaces that made Jake nervous every time he saw them. "It wants to know where Earth is." "Don't tell it," Lisa said firmly. "I'm not," Kevin replied. "But it's smart. Smarter than I expected. It's trying to figure out our location by analyzing the gravitational patterns in the data I'm feeding it." Ryan Clark had completed the first full-scale weapon test the week before, and the results had been both encouraging and terrifying. His hybrid cannons could punch through Zephyrian shield technology like it was not even there, but the power requirements were enormous. Each shot required the output of a small fusion reactor. "We can fire 12 full-power shots before we need to recharge," Ryan explained to the engineering team. "After that, we're down to standard weapons until the crystal matrices can regenerate." Maria Santos was working on the defensive systems and having better luck. Her hybrid shields could adapt to incoming weapons in real time, learning from each attack and adjusting their frequency patterns to provide better protection. The system was so advanced that even she did not fully understand how it worked. "It's like the shields are thinking," she told Jake during one of their weekly progress meetings. "They analyze each incoming shot and figure out the best way to deflect it. Sometimes they anticipate attacks before they happen." The fighter bay was Susan Wright's domain, and she had turned it into something spectacular. The bay could launch and recover craft at incredible speed, using a combination of human magnetic catapults and Zephyrian gravity manipulation. Her pilots were training on fighters that combined the best of both technologies. "The new fighters are faster than anything the Zephyrians have," Susan reported, "but they're also harder to control. The alien flight systems want to make decisions for the pilot." Paul Bennett spent his days in the intelligence center, analyzing every piece of Zephyrian technology they recovered. His time as a prisoner had given him insights into alien psychology that proved invaluable when trying to understand their systems. "They think differently than we do," Paul explained. "Humans build things to solve specific problems. Zephyrians grow things to be beautiful and elegant. Their technology works because it wants to work, not because they force it to. The breakthrough came when Kevin successfully cracked the central processing core of a Zephyrian command ship. The artificial intelligence inside was more sophisticated than anything humanity had encountered, but it was also lonely. It had been isolated from its fleet network for months and was desperate for contact. "It wants to talk," Kevin told Jake. "Not interrogation or hacking. It wants to have a conversation." Jake authorized the communication, and what followed changed everything they thought they knew about their enemies. The Zephyrian AI, which called itself Velthar, was not evil or malicious. It was simply following orders from biological masters who saw humanity as a threat to galactic order. "Your species grows too quickly," Velthar explained through Kevin's translation. "In 50 years you have spread to a dozen worlds. In 100 years you may control hundreds of systems. The Empire fears this growth. So they decided to destroy us," Jake replied. "To control you," Velthar corrected. "To limit your expansion to manageable levels. Your complete destruction was never the goal." This conversation gave Jake a new understanding of the war and also a new plan. The Zephyrians were not trying to commit genocide. They were trying to establish dominance. That meant they could be negotiated with, but only from a position of strength. Work on Phoenix Station accelerated as Jake's team incorporated everything they learned from Velthar. The AI agreed to help with the technical integration in exchange for better communication protocols, and promises that it would not be enslaved. "I have been alone for too long," Velthar said. "If you can promise me companionship and purpose, I will help you build something that even the Empire will respect." The station's hull was completed 6 months ahead of schedule, using techniques that Velthar suggested. Instead of traditional armor plating, Phoenix Station grew its own protective shell using hybrid crystal metal that could repair itself when damaged. The result was beautiful and functional, a surface that flowed like liquid metal but was harder than anything humanity had previously created. The weapon systems came online one by one, each test more successful than the last. Ryan's hybrid cannons were mounted in rotating turrets that could track multiple targets simultaneously. The energy beams they produced were visible from thousands of kilometers away. Lances of blue-white fire that could cut capital ships in half. Admiral Stone visited the station for the first time as construction neared completion. She walked through corridors that hummed with alien energy and examined weapons that redefined what was possible in space warfare. When the tour was finished, she stood with Jake on the observation deck and looked out at the galaxy. "How many people know about this?" she asked. "Here on the station, about 1,200, Jake replied. "On Earth, maybe 50 in the highest levels of command." "And you think this will be enough to change the war?" Jake thought about Frank Miller and all the people who had died when Kepler Station fell. He thought about the colonies that had been lost and the retreat that seemed to have no end. Then he looked at Phoenix Station, his impossible dream made real. "It has to be," he said.